Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio in Las Vegas. Thank you for joining us. It is football season. Does it feel like football season? Did you watch the game last night? How did that go for you? We want to know. We're going to talk all about last night. Not only do you miss out on the ability to take our show wherever you go, but you also are missing out on great content from all over the country, sports radio, music, and more, talk, you name it. So check out the radio.com app. Also, check out silverandblacktoday.com, our website. You can also stream this show live on YouTube, Periscope, via Twitter, and Facebook. Definitely go to YouTube, better spot there. Subscribe, hit notifications. All right, as usual, I can't do this alone. Although sometimes with these guys next to me, I feel alone. My co-hosts, starting with Mr. Kelly Kreiner. Kelly, how you doing this morning? Are you awake? I notice you have a new hat.
Yes, I'm barely awake, and I do have a new hat.
That's right.
That is true. Some of our great listeners from out in Pennsylvania area sent me a hat.
Well, that's the thing,
Thank
too.
you, gentlemen.
I was going to say, we have great listeners all over the country, and you're wearing one. What is the name of the town in Pennsylvania where he's from?
Ottsville?
Ottsville,
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
Ottsville. Yeah.
So, again, we have folks all over the country, all over the world who listen to the show, and Kelly benefits from that with a nice new hat. And then the man, the myth, well, no, you're not a myth, you're real. That's Mr. Chaz Osborne. Chaz, how has your week been, man?
Legendary.
Legendary?
I don't know.
How so?
No, I had to go run down to San Diego. My mom actually out gardening. She fell and broke her arm. So I had
She
to go
broke
down
her
there.
arm.
Had to help her get back on her feet. No pun intended.
Well, yes, and stay off her arm, right? Because,
Exactly.
Because she didn't break her feet, which is good. All right, so we are going to dive right in and talk Raider football. Of course, this past week, a big week in Raider Nation, especially here in Las Vegas. On Monday, myself and Chaz, we were out at the stadium site where they had the topping out.
Yep.
Most people call it a topping off, but I was told by Raider staff they are calling it topping out.
Nope.
And so we will make sure that we stay with topping out.
Topping off is what you do at the happy hour.
That's right. That's right. All right. So we were there, and we were fortunate enough to have a one-on-one interview. I won't mention the media member who also stood on the side and stole our one-on-one and posted video of it beforehand. Unbelievable. Do your own work. But anyway, we're going to jump in, and we're gonna play you. We had a one-on-one interview with owner Mark Davis, and we wanted to talk to him about the stadium, the naming rights, of course, Allegiant Stadium as it is now known, but also about the loss of his friend Cliff Branch. So here is our conversation with Raiders owner Mark Davis.
Here on the Silver and Black today with Raiders owner Mark Davis. Mark, talk about this day to see your vision and the organization's vision start to really take shape and pass this milestone.
Well, again, it's a milestone, and as I've said before, that the least important thing in life is to score at halftime. We're excited today, but we still have a job to do to finish. And that's what I'm hoping that these guys understand, and I believe that the workers do. As long as they do it safely, efficiently, we're going to get it done in time. We'll be done in a little less than a year from now and be playing football here next year.
Now, Mark, every time I'm out here, it's remarkable the relationship and the bond you've developed with the men and women building this stadium. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, they mean so much to me. I call them the MVPs. They're actually doing the job. And it's just amazing to me how many pieces there are to this stadium. I mean, you see these big steel girders, but there's nuts and bolts that go in to make them stick together. And these guys, men and women, are doing it. And they do it in tough conditions at times.
Now, a little bit of mixed emotions. You lost your good friend Cliff Branch. Talk about what Cliff meant to you and to the Raider Nation all over.
Yeah, it's tough. And a new word I'm using is compartmentalize. Prior to Cliff, we lost seven people from the Raider Nation this year, Raider family. And we just had a reunion up in Napa, and we talked about that. And then to lose Cliff 2 nights ago, I'm still devastated. I'm still in shock. He was my best friend. He's still my best friend. I love him. there's nothing more I can say, but he's just one of the greatest people I've ever known in my life.
Mark, our condolences and thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, there you have it. Raiders owner Mark Davis. We're able to get him on the side for a few minutes at the stadium, topping out and naming announcement, which was interesting. It was a great event to go to. It was hot, and Chaz and I were out there. And Chaz, you know, we had some indication going in, right, via folks that we talked to, but also when we rolled up.
Oh yeah.
When we rolled up to the stadium site that morning, Chaz, we noticed that the billboard outside the stadium, which has said, you know, Raiders coming 2020 for a long time, was covered in a black tarp. Ooh, we think something might happen. Okay, so we figured that might happen, and sure enough, Chaz, we get out there and Mark Bedane goes up and this is what he said. Tony, we're going to play the other clip here. Here was the announcement on the stadium, and we'll come back and we'll talk about that.
We're also here to celebrate another exciting announcement. This city was built by pioneers and entrepreneurs and risk takers, people who weren't afraid to think a little differently, buck convention, and that's in the Raiders' DNA. So we can sympathize with that and we identify with it. So when we were looking for a stadium naming partner, we were really excited that a locally based company that shares that part of their DNA. They're not afraid to think differently. They're not afraid to buck convention. They're not afraid to do things differently. Stepped up and decided that they wanted to partner with us and they wanted to be a part of something really special here. So from this day forward, I'd like to announce that the stadium will now be known as Allegiant Stadium, and we're really excited that they're on board.
Most of all, I want to thank the guys back there with the hard hats. Those are the guys that work every day, every night, making this dream come true for all of us in the Raider Nation. As they know, we serve lunches quite a bit to them, but every time that we have lunch, I remind them that my philosophy is that the least important thing in life is the score at halftime. You gotta finish the game, and we've gotta finish this. Today is a magnificent milestone, putting up the last piece of steel, but we've got 1 year to finish it. Let's do it safely and get it done the Raider way. Thank you all.
All right, well, there you go. There was the announcement, and, of course, Mark Davis is on that halftime thing, right? But again, he thanked the workers at the stadium, and as you heard from the one-on-one interview we had with him, there really is that special relationship, and you sense it, Chaz, walking around talking to the men and women who are building the stadium. They love him, and he's there all the time having lunch with them, feeding them, and kind of cheering them on.
It felt like a lot of them were Raider fans, too, because while it was all going on, a lot of them had their cameras out, and they were filming, and they were cheering louder than the Allegiant people and all, you know, the other dignitaries that were there. And, you know, it's great to have everybody on the same page and when you're doing a big job like that.
Are you saying that the folks from Allegiant were not cheering enough?
No, I'm just saying these workers were cheering more. They were great. They were into it.
Kelly, what do you think? I mean, you always have an opinion on everything. So what about, I mean, look, it's a good deal for the Raiders, but Allegiant, we heard rumors about it back from Mick Akers in May.
I was going to say,
are you surprised at all?
No, because it was kind of the worst kept secret because there had been so much smoke, there had to be some fire at some point. If you would have said at the beginning of this for me to pick 2 or 3 places that would have it, Allegiant would not have been one of them. But when it started leaking out and you started thinking about it, it kind of makes sense. You know, I don't think we've heard the official actual price yet, but the numbers are getting thrown around. It's a big number, but the difference between getting the stadium here and other places is you're buying Las Vegas as much as you are the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And anytime there's an event at T-Mobile, at MGM, and they do the flyover and everything, you're going to see the Raider Stadium, Allegiant Field.
Yeah.
So you're getting so much more exposure than you are for 10 football games and 4 events in, say, San Francisco or somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, you can justify the price.
Well, you can justify the price, and I think the one thing that Mark Bedane said, and it was surprising to me because outside of gaming companies, it was going to be tough, I thought, to get a quote-unquote local company to be a sponsor because we just don't have massive corporations here unless it's Minor Gaming, okay? And the fact that Allegiant is based here, I think, is very cool. I mean, it's a local company. You could drive out to their headquarters in Summerlin. You can talk to people around town. A lot of people work at Allegiant, and not just at the airport. I'm talking about the corporate office and talking to their PR staff, Hillary Gray, who runs their PR staff there. It really is a company involved in the local community. So to have them on board, and like you said, we are a tourist destination. We are a service industry town that is dependent on visitors. So the airline makes sense. Of course, there were the wisecracks from people saying, well, if their flights aren't late, it's like, okay, whatever. You can say that about every airline. And Allegiant is a low-cost airline. You have to pay to bring luggage on and certain all this stuff. But that's how they keep their prices low. It's a different model, and it's worked for them, and they grow. Yep. So very exciting for the Raiders this week. And for now, we can call it Allegiant Stadium. We don't have to call it the generic blue stripe
mystery
Las Vegas Stadium, right? Which is nice. So, yeah, the Death Star is the nickname, which we like. And you can also buy a T-shirt on our website.
Hey.
All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to be all about Raiders versus Rams. Did you watch the game last night? I'm assuming you did. We will talk about that and what we saw in our observations here on the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Meet the boys in blue.
Well hit on its way and at the wall. It's gone. A walk-off home run.
Baseball on CBS Sports Radio 1140 is brought to you by Great American Pub and by Pro Group Management.
Hey now, Las Vegas, this is Dustin the Heart with Nova Home Loans.
And of course, Aaron Taylor, the real estate guy. Join us every Saturday on 840 KXNT from 11 to 1.
And we're going to show you how you can purchase a home with no money down.
The law office of Michael A. Troiano is a proud supporter of all things Las Vegas, including its people, specializing in legal representation for all criminal defense matters ranging from misdemeanors to the most serious felonies. Attorney Michael Troiano provides clients with the legal strategy and professional representation needed in court. If you or a loved one find yourself in a legal situation and need a tough defense on your side, Michael Troiano can help. Call now for a free consultation, 702-843-5500, or learn more at TroianoVegasLaw.com.
Escaping somewhere this summer? Whether you're hitting the beach, taking the family camping, or lounging by the pool, take your favorite news, sports, music, and podcasts with you. How? Just download the free radio.com app and start listening now. Download it today on your phone or connected device, or listen on your smart speaker. Wherever summer carries you, you can listen live, anytime, anywhere.
11:40.
The Dodgers take on the Diamondbacks today at noon on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hey, this is Rodney Hudson. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
Oh, how apropos we come back into Rodney Hudson, offensive line. Oy vey. Oh, man. We're going to talk about that actually later in the show. We're going to do an entire 10 minutes on the concerns with the Raiders' offensive line in the hour number 2, so make sure you stick around that. Also, I forgot to tell you who's on the show today. After the next break, we're going to talk with Jesse Reed from Sportsnaut. He is our Hard Knocks guy. We're going to talk about the first episode. Yes, it was Tuesday. Yes, a lot of people talked about it, but we have not heard Kelly talk about it.
It's true.
So we need the realism of a Mr. Kelly Kreiner to talk about it.
You know I hate reality TV, so I'm sure
Exactly.
everybody can't wait to hear what I think of reality TV.
Right, exactly. That's because that's why everybody calls you Mr. Sunshine. So we're going to talk about that. Also, at the quarter hour, or I should say, at 45 after the hour, Doel Cortez. Well, we're gonna have a complete discussion on cryotherapy, Antonio Brown's nasty feet.
Oh,
his burns. So we figured, Chaz said, I'm going to go get a cryotherapy expert. So we did. We're going to bring that to you. Also, top of next hour, Mr. Ken Evans from the Las Vegas Stadium Authority Board will be here as well. We'll pepper him with some questions on the stadium project. So make sure you don't go anywhere. All right, Raiders versus Rams, guys. Last night, the preseason gets off. Everybody's excited because, hell, it's football, right? So we get some football on the television. It's real football, not practice. Well, I say real football in quotes, as no Raiders starters for the most part, especially on offense, actually played. But I want to run through. Let's talk a little bit about who caught our eye. Okay, some guys that I thought did well, because if you're watching the preseason and you're a Raiders fan, don't pay attention to the score. Don't pay attention to the entire team and the units and all that stuff. You need to watch individual players. You need to watch one-on-one matchups, what's going on. And here's a couple guys I want to talk first about, I thought, that I watched and ISO'd, to use a term on, Mr. Film Guy Kelly over there, that I really thought did well, at least for one game. Starting with rookie cornerback Trayvon Mullen. I thought Mullen really showed promise and covered, again, the Rams weren't starting guys either.
The Rams started nobody.
Right. They started nobody. You're right. But from a technical standpoint, watching him, I thought he was doing all the right things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, he didn't go up against a quarterback who's ever going to throw a pass, or a wide receiver who may not run a route. But that's the thing. You can only go up against the people on the field, and his job is to shut those people down. And yeah, he did look good at times. And that's kind of the thing with him, because he rarely got tested in college, so nobody really knows how good he is. So, in the next couple weeks, you start seeing starters play a little more often, him getting more reps. We'll find out exactly what he is. But yeah, he did look pretty good.
Yep.
That's from Kelly, that is high praise to say that he looked pretty good. Yeah. So we'll I'm sure Trayvon Martin, once he gets word that was your comment, I'm sure he'll be very happy. Chaz, what'd you think of Mullen?
He was great. I feel like the defense got the win in the game. Like you said, the Rams really didn't start anybody, so there wasn't much to go. But, holding them under 200 total net yards, and I think they held them down to 10 first downs. They were 3 for 14 on third down conversion. So it was nice to see the defense stepping it up.
It was. Now, I thought overall that's one of the notes that I had, because I actually have notes. Oh, some folks on radio in Las Vegas don't prepare notes, but I do. Doesn't make me any good, but at least I prepare notes. Mostly, again, defense, mostly backups. There were some of the rookies who were in there. I thought overall they did well. Cleveland Furl, by the way. He wants Furl.
It's Furl now?
I've always called him Feral, like a feral cat, but it's like Furl.
Ice cream?
I heard, yes, the broadcast team last night was specific about that. That's what he wants. So we will do that. But the defense looked good. I think the Raiders, and do you guys agree? I mean, watch, again, one sample size, very small against a lot of backups and worse. But I thought the Raiders I think the Raiders have, and we'll get to Antonio Brown later, I think the Raiders have a lot of tough decisions to make at wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree.
You look at last night, Ryan Grant, J.J. Nelson, of course, the Alameda native Keelan Doss,
that was
and
great.
Keon Hatcher. They all look good, guys. I mean, we'll see how it plays out over the next few weeks. But, Kelly, I mean, it's not a terrible problem to have.
It's not, and I don't think it's going to be that tough a decision, really. I don't see any way that Hatcher or Grant make the team. Keelan Doss, to me, is the one, because I don't think you can stash him on a practice squad because somebody will grab him, so he's going to have to make the 53 if you want to keep him. I think he's going to be the tough decision. We know what Ryan Grant is. He's just not a very good football player. You know, it's
Gruden loves him.
Yeah,
he talked about him in his press conference and about how his brother had him and he saw him at practice one day. And
and his brother let him go.
Right. Yeah, his brother did let him
go. And Gruden does love everybody. Doesn't he?
That's that's my whole thing. They let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
He got the contract to Baltimore. Baltimore canceled the contract because they got Crabtree instead.
Mm-hmm.
The Redskins had another chance to get him back and didn't take him. They didn't love him too much.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Keelan Doss, that was probably one of my favorite plays of the game, too, getting that touchdown in front of his family, his hometown team and everything. He, like you said, he should make the team just because of his backstory. And it's just one of those.
No, he shouldn't. I don't care about your backstory. If you're not good, you shouldn't.
Obviously,
be on the
his
team.
play on the field is good enough to get him there. But if you're weighing it and there's two guys that are the same, I would go with Doss just because of that extra.
And I still like, and I liked him last year, I like Keon Hatcher. Keon Hatcher made the team last year because of the final preseason game. I mean, he had such a big game, and it was kind of like, hey, he solidified his spot. But it's interesting. I think that we'll see on Ryan Grant. But yes, Keelan Doss to me is the guy who really stuck out and was the one that I think is going to force their hand into making sure he's on the team. Now, a lot of the folks on Facebook are active because you know what, the most popular thing to talk about at any time is always the backup quarterback.
Oh, I thought you were going the punter competition.
Well, we're going to get to that before we get out of this portion of the show. But I will tell you that last night Nathan Peterman looked much better than Glennon. There's no question. But remember, folks, before you start going out, because I see a lot of Raider fans do this, and I'm trying to save you money and embarrassment. Don't go buy a Nathan Peterman jersey just yet. Because
I don't think you can. I don't even think that's an option.
Yes, NFL.com now. You can order anything you want. I can get one that says Kelly's Corner with a K. I can do all kinds of things. So anyway, Nathan Peterman had the 50-yard run. Okay, great. There could be
it was awesome.
It was fine. It was fine. But if you look at the history of Nathan Peterman, and I'm not bagging on him because I think Kelly said it in our pre-show conversation that he more than anybody gets battered because of two performances in 2 games. That's where he's gotten his negative reputation. And is that fair? Probably not. But he has the biggest drop-off of anybody when it comes to preseason versus regular season games, okay? Just performance-wise. And it is a difference. So before you get all excited, because all these folks are talking about Nathan Peterman, I got Michael Guerrero here, MVP of the preseason, book it. Yeah. Who cares? It's the preseason.
Yep.
That's like saying, well, I was the MVP of warm-ups in the NBA. I was shooting threes, and then I scored no points in the game. Guys, I'm not saying don't like Nathan Peterman. I'm just saying temper your excitement. Football's back. I know you're excited, but whoa, Nelly.
Whoa.
Yeah, the Browns and the Lions went 0-16 a few years ago. They were both 4-0 in the preseason.
That's right. No, it doesn't really matter. But what did you see, Chaz, when you were up at camp? You said Glennon looked like terrible. Did you see the same things you saw from him at camp that you saw last night?
No, he looked a lot better last night. He did make a few throws. I felt like all of his throws were a little underthrown. And he had a couple that he threw in the dirt because the play was broken down, and a couple that he threw out of bounds, which is smart. If there's nothing happening, just get rid of it. So he looked a little bit better to me, but I still, either one of them, they don't have enough to push Carr for the starting spot. That's for sure.
Well, of course not. I mean,
that's not close. So I would back off the Peterman MVP chance for now.
Yeah, and if anybody's talking about him even coming close to being a starter, then they got to stop eating mushrooms.
Oh,
I mean, because anyway, but I thought that. But let's get to what Kelly talked about because we only got a minute and a half left here or so, and that was the punting. A.J. Cole. A.J. Cole's got the job, Kelly. There's no question to me.
Yep.
Oh, you're asking.
This is the last time we're going to talk about punters.
I'm
the whole
not
season.
following a punter competition in preseason.
Sure you are.
No, I don't care.
Yes, you do.
Not at all.
You do. I know.
He does.
Ray Guy's your favorite player of all time.
He was my favorite player.
Hey. You're a punter. You're a punting aficionado.
Yeah, don't care. Just tell me who the punter's going to be. You know,
and don't shank the ball.
Even that.
Even if they do, they don't care. You don't care.
Yeah, it's like they were giving me crap because I was watching one game on my phone and one on the TV yesterday at the Cigar Lounge.
What's wrong with that?
Well, exactly. It's like I've got action on both of these. It's like,
That's
yeah,
football.
I will bet preseason football.
Yep.
You know, doesn't mean I have to care about a punter competition.
Well, anyway, AJ Cole's going to win that one. I think the other player that really looked poor, and we'll talk some more about this when we talk about the offensive line, but Brandon Parker is not helping himself. I like the kid a lot, but he's in big trouble. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Jesse Reed from Sports Knot on Hard Knocks. You're listening to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Sports Radio. You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Now, we are going to talk about something we've been talking about, I think, at least in social media and all over the place. There's been stories about it and whatnot. And that, of course, is Hard Knocks. The Raiders making their first appearance on the show as it launched this past Tuesday. It'll be at Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. If you have HBO, it's 10 p.m. Eastern time. And we now bring in the guy we're going to talk to all season about Hard Knocks. And that is our good friend Jesse Reed from sportsnot.com. You can follow him at Jesse, Jesse, Reed, Reed 78 on Twitter. So make sure you do that. Jesse, welcome back to Silver and Black Today. How you doing this morning?
Fantastic, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well. All right, let's jump in. Hard Knocks Episode 1. What were your general overview thoughts about the Raiders' debut on this show?
A little bit muted, to be perfectly honest. I felt like HBO dropped the ball a bit. I think a lot of people have said this, but right off the bat, there's the big Antonio Brown issue that they very much danced around. I noticed they didn't even show his feet. Like he was sitting on the ground at one point, and his shoes were off, and his feet were exposed, and all they showed was a sliver of his top big toe. And they wouldn't show that. They wouldn't go into it. And then, of course, it wasn't long after that Antonio Brown himself went on social media and posted those nasty pictures. So everybody got to see. It's just kind of funny, you'd think that a show that prides itself on bringing fans right into the inside of what goes on would have worked hard to bring all this to light, and it seems like instead HBO, perhaps at the urging of the NFL, has really taken a softened stance on really reporting on what's going on behind the scenes there.
Yeah, it is a definite balance, and you have to wonder where they're going to go with it. And of course, the first thing that I watched, and yes, I mean it was the biggest story, and they have up until Saturday. The director of Hard Knocks was on our sister show Saturday Sports Beat with Tony Cardasco on Saturday mornings last week, and he said they have until like late Saturday to sort of make any changes to the show. Which is why they had a tribute to Cliff Branch, who passed away last Saturday as well. So that makes sense. But I agree with you. The Brown thing was underplayed, and you got to think that that's because the Raider organization wants it that way, and I get that. But the star for me, and I think everybody agreed on this, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it as well, is Jonathan Abrams. So Jonathan Abrams, to me, personality, swagger, and really had that kind of Raiders mentality that I think outsiders and insiders alike, Raider Nation, look at guy who's hitting guys in his shirt and his shorts and helmet. He had that aggressiveness. And then Jesse, he had that conversation with John Gruden, which was really interesting because you could tell Gruden was not exactly happy with what was going on, but Abrams was pushing him.
It was awesome. I mean, how awesome was that? He went toe-to-toe with one of the toughest coaches around, staring him right in the eye. You can't cut me.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, the guy has a set on him, and I got to think that's going to be really good for the Raiders. I mean, coming out of college, he was a really good player anyways. I was really high on him. A lot of people were really high on him. And then just to see the personality, the alpha, I'm the top dog kind of mentality, the Raiders desperately needed that. And I think he brings a whole another level of vitality and leadership. I think he's going to be almost an instant leader. I think, guys, you saw with on the horseback trip with Cleveland Farrell, he was definitely the guy, leading that whole deal. And I think that players will probably gravitate around him very early in his career. He is just a really magnetic person that I think is going to inject some serious life into the whole team. I loved it. That was definitely the highlight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Jesse, it's Kelly here. You mentioned they kind of danced around the Antonio Brown thing.
No pun intended.
But the one thing that gets me is they're already setting up for this to be a bad move by the Raiders, because within the first 3 minutes they talk about he's already breaking down, and they use that quote. And this isn't him breaking down. This was an accident. If Derek Carr would have cut his hand and couldn't throw a football, would they be saying he's breaking down?
No.
Because it's the same situation.
Yeah, it is the same situation. However, I would like to perhaps posit that they also had an inkling about the helmet situation, and I'm wondering if the breakdown may not be mainly a physical thing, but his connection to the team already seems to be breaking down. When I watched him in particular, Antonio Brown seemed obviously a little disconnected, and he also seemed like he wasn't 100% all the way in. He seemed like he was a little bit, honestly, insecure. When he was talking with guys, he wasn't really fully in, it seemed. It's just, that was my perspective. And I'm not an insider, and I don't have inside information on that, but it seemed like he wasn't as in as all the other guys were. And I think that HBO probably wants to stretch out any drama that they can, obviously, in saying that he might be breaking down. It could be physical, but obviously the guy's the hardest worker, around, and if his body's okay, he's going to be fine. I don't think that his feet have anything to do with his body breaking down physically, as you said. But I do think that there was obviously a disconnect almost right off the bat as soon as he got there. That helmet situation is very strange, and supposedly threatening to retire, which I think is BS. But there's just this really big. His whole thing is hanging over the team like you would not believe.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I think a little bit. If I can be self-critical of those in the media too, I think some of the reporting and some of the issues that are being bantered about are actually the wrong issues. I think you've touched on some of the other ones, which is watching the footage and feeling like he's not comfortable. And I think that's the bigger concern. The bigger concern is not so much the helmet. They'll work that out. It's not even the feet. That'll heal up. It's more about that chemistry, which is why Gruden wants him there. Not necessarily because he's going to play a lot of snaps in a preseason game or even on the field, but just that he's there, because the stigma coming in with Antonio Brown is around the persona, the personality. And so to me, that is one of the keys there. So I think as people look at it, you can't dismiss it and saying, oh, it's going to be fine. And you can't say it's the worst thing ever, because I've seen other people say that the Raiders are already regretting it. I don't think that's true. I think the truth, as usual, Jesse, is somewhere in the middle.
Definitely. And to your point, in the first team meeting, it struck me that he was in the back standing away. He had a couple of guys standing with him. I don't know if they were teammates or if they were part of his personal entourage, but he was already, from the very beginning, kind of set apart.
Yeah.
In that very first team meeting. And that just struck me as well. It seems like he has no reason to be insecure or uncomfortable. He's one of the best players to come into the league in many, many years. But he seems like he's having a hard time getting integrated with the Raiders.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, too, the other thing is you don't have, and I want to sort of finish up with you a little bit about Derek Carr, because I still am amazed, and I'll get accused, as I often do from folks in Raider Nation, of being a Carr apologist or whatever you want to call it. But I like the guy. I defend the guy a lot. But Derek Carr is one of the most likable people that you can find, I think, in the NFL. But then some people dislike him because of it. I see it in Raider Nation, Jesse. I mean, you report on the entire league, so you're not just focused on the Raiders. But I don't understand. I get the performance on the field. People want to see a certain something out of him. I get that. There's different types of leaders, and I think Derek Carr is a different type of leader. I grew up, my favorite baseball player of all time was Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn led by playing on the field. He led by example. He was not a guy who was going to rah-rah, get in your face and yell. And so I look at Derek Carr as being that same way. Whether or not John Gruden long-term wants that, we'll have to see. But what is it about Derek Carr that polarizes people?
I think it's because, well, let's just say a lot of people seem to really gravitate toward the Baker Mayfield model. Very, very alpha. I'm, out in front. I'm talking. Everybody's listening to me. And as you said, Derek Carr's very much the opposite of that. He's, and I think it's a great thing. He's a staunch Christian guy. He's a family man. He is more interested in just doing the work. And I think a lot of people think he's a little too goody two-shoes. I'm not one of those people, but I think that, Raider Nation, there's that stigma that you got to be really tough. You got to be kind of a little nasty. And Derek Carr is not that. He's not any of those things. He's a tough guy, for sure, but he's not out there putting forth that persona. And I think that Raiders fans have a hard time embracing that. He's not Ken Stabler,
He's not cavorting in the middle of the night with ladies all over the place on pool tables and whatnot. But Jesse Reed from sportsnot.com at JesseReed78. Jesse, we're going to have you on next week. We'll talk about next week's episode. We appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, fellas, and you have a great weekend.
All right, you too, buddy. All right, Jesse Reed on Hard Knocks. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're going to step aside and pay some bills when we come back. Doel Cortez from Ageless Cryotherapy. We're going to talk about Antonio Brown's feet. Yes, we're talking about men's feet on this show. Go figure. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.